One of the things I love about worship at university, it is not predicated on a crowd. It's not predicated on an army. Jermaine, it could be three of us in here. We're going to worship no matter what. Because the God we serve, we understand that he is infinite, he is powerful, and he's life-changing. I just want to read a verse for you really quickly. It's found in the book of Matthew, the 15th chapter, verses 21 through 28, and it reads this way. And Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from the region came out and was crying on me, O Lord, son of David, my daughter is severely oppressed by a demon. But he did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him and saying, send her away, for she's crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But she came and knelt before him, and the Lord, saying, Lord, help me. And he answered, it is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs. She said, yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. And then Jesus answered her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire. And her daughter was healed. I want to talk to you a little bit this morning. Simple topic. Fighting through the tough times. Fighting through the tough times. Fighting through the tough times. On this Mother's Day, I have come to the conclusion through not extensive research, but just talking with people, watching the news, listening to everything that is around. And I've come to the conclusion that we are living in an age of trauma. We are living in difficult times. We are living in challenging times. We are living in a space where we are now dealing with trauma. Trauma can come from many different places. Trauma can come from many different places, and many of us will suffer PTSD from this for a very long time. At the root cause, many of us understand that we now live in fear of an unseeable enemy, which is a virus. So it has thoroughly shifted our very activities, things that we always used to do. I had a friend on Facebook, and she wrote, one of my favorite things was to go to movies. That was my decompression time. I can't even go. I'm starting to miss going to the movies. You know, some people that used to go to the gym every morning to lift weights to release tension, they can't even do that. You know, parents are trying to figure out, how do you burn the energy of a 2, 5, 10, 15, 25, 35-year-old child as they sit in the house all day? Because I'm in parents groups, and everybody had a perfectly beautiful Excel schedule 8 weeks ago with snack times and meeting times and Zoom times and all of that. And this week, it's one big black blob on the screen that says survive. Survive. The kids have one. They have one. They now dominate. But that's not the only trauma. If that just fear of a virus was enough, it would be all right. But we now face significant and economic impacts that are going to resonate for a whole generation. You know, some people in Washington, D.C. say this will be a V-shaped bounce back. Some say this will be another Great Depression. All I know is that before it ends, it's going to be painful. The reality is that this disease has disproportionately affected Black and brown people in employment and in sickness, and it's causing serious tension. If that wasn't enough, if we didn't have nature and economy causing stress, we now have systems in politics causing stress. Systems and politics causing stress. It's amazing. I'm watching these protests around the country, and people are like, open back up. So my hairdresser and my landscaper and my people that work for me that don't look like me can go back to work. You notice they're not fighting to go back to work because they can work from home, but they want us to go back to work because they want somebody to meet their every needs. What is the selfishness of a nation that would think it's appropriate to put black and brown bodies on the front lines to serve people? And they don't care if we get sick, if we die. Well, I don't understand why we don't have something in Washington, D.C. that is saying, how do we cut the death rate for those that are of black and Latino descent? We haven't had one meeting, one call, one thing, and it's at 18%. I am so frustrated. But if that wasn't enough, my social media showed a young black man. I've been to Brunswick, Georgia. I've been there. I go there every year. I won't go back now. I ain't going back. No, we're not going back there. We're not. Jogging. Remember what I said earlier? Just looking for a way to make it through this pandemic, jogging. And two men attempt to stop him. Now, I went and asked some lawyers this week because I'm not a lawyer. I'm like, can another private citizen stop me on the road? Do I have to listen to the command of I thought I live in a free nation. But the thing that bothered me, they hunt him, they chase him, they shoot him, they kill him. Then the district attorney says there isn't enough to bring up charges 2 months ago. Then they recuse her. Then they bring another one and say there isn't enough. And then we see the video and everybody says it's enough. But the thing that bothered me, thing that might make me cuss in this pulpit this morning, was people were starting GoFundMe pages for the two men that shot this young man. They said the young man did not conform to orders. If he had just listened to them. I didn't realize that black boys could still get shot like it's Jim Crow because we don't listen to white men. And the nerve of you to start a GoFundMe, but then march the week before to tell me to go back to work to serve. We live in a tough time. And the reality is this. But this mother in the Bible gives me hope. Let me tell you something that I've realized. I think everybody's realized this, Lori. That the job of mother and stay-at-home mother, a lot of men are real humble about it right now, Jermaine. Yeah, me too. And like, listen, I'm about to put a petition in for Mother's Week. Mother's Week. We need more than a day. We need a whole week for them. This pandemic has shown us the level and intensity that it takes to care for our child. Because some of us were so busy doing careers and everything else. So I think it's so important that we should look at this woman that is in a period of trauma, dealing with systems and structures that are against her, and look at how she deals with this and how this works its way out. Because I think this will be helpful and encouraging to push us through. Let me start. This is an interesting story. This is what many scholars of the Matthean text will call the retirement period, or the beginning of the Perean period of this gospel. Basically, Jesus had done a lot of work in the area of Galilee, and he had said, it's time to take a break, I need to retire, and then he's going to go into some more teaching with his disciples. But then you end up with this story that's very interesting in the middle, in the transition of this period. The challenge here is that Jesus is moving from one phase to another. He is in a land where he's trying to get rest, and he is confronted by a woman. As we see this confrontation, a lot of interesting things happen. I believe Jesus' response, some say it's confusion, some say it's a pregnant pause, whatever it is. Some are wondering what the disciples' response in the story is. But what I want to do today is do a character study of what a mother looks like in tough times. Because this, I think, will help other people get through tough times. This will inform and this will build you. She had three things. She had an audacious ask. She had phenomenal persistence. And she had a firm faith. She had an audacious ask, phenomenal persistence, and firm faith. Let's start. As many people that read the Bible, that Bible scholars will understand, the book of Matthew was designed to speak to the Hebrew believer in the first century. That informs the language and some of the referential parts of the text. If you start by reading, that's why this gospel starts with his genealogy, because they need to place Jesus in the line of the messianic prophecy for the children of Israel. But right here in this text, the author is doing some very specific things to give you an indication of where this woman is. First of all, Tyre and Sidon are in the northern part of Israel, going outside of it, and it is a foreign land. So what the author was trying to tell the people at the time was they were no longer located within the confines and the bounds of an Israeli nation or a historical Israel nation. They were outside of this. So this would be modern day Lebanon and Syria. So Jesus was in a strange land. But the other thing that they want to do is they call them a Canaanite woman. To Hebrew believers, anybody that was a Canaanite was somebody that was standing on the land that God had promised the children of Israel after they came out of the exile. So what am I trying to say? He's in a strange land talking to somebody that he has no business talking to. This woman was so concerned about her daughter that she was going to talk to the Messiah of the enemy to save her. Some of us are scared to do the audacious ask, to say the thing that would require us to look in the face of those that are distant and far from us and stand where we need to stand and say, I need this right now. How many of us are asking God for something audacious in our tough times? I think so many of us in this season are just more worried about surviving and getting by and getting over and just be like, God, don't get me sick and don't let me lose my job. But God needs you in this season to step out into strange lands and deal with strange people, to say and ask for miraculous things. You see, you don't understand. I grew up in a home where my mother, I've seen black mothers, and black mothers are an example of this, because as long as I've grown up, I've seen them do audacious ask. I'm going to get my child in that private school so he can get a better education. I'm going to work 3 or 4 jobs so they can pay for school. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my baby has the opportunity. Black mothers have been asking the audacious ask for years. I don't believe that this church would be here without the mothers of the church putting pennies together to make sure that these buildings are built. I wouldn't be here right now if we didn't have black mothers in churches asking me, boy, are you keeping it together? So many of us got to realize that if we just look back at our history and we see the audacious ask that mothers have asked for us and asked before us, we wouldn't be standing right here. I know you think you're smart. I know you think you're sedity. I know you think that doctorate came by yourself. I know you think the degree was your own. But let me tell you what happened. There was a praying mother someplace, sometime in 1930 that prayed for her children. Then another mother in 1950 that prayed for her children. And another mother in the 1970s that prayed for her children. And another mother in the 1990s that prayed for her children. And all of a sudden you standing here thinking you're all that. No, you are the product of an audacious ask. An audacious ask. But the other thing this mother has that we need to learn is she has phenomenal persistence. Phenomenal persistence, phenomenal persistence. Okay. She goes to Jesus. She makes the audacious ask for her daughter. And a couple of things unfold here. First, there is silence from God. Second, there's a response of men. Third, there's a pushback of structure. And fourth, she keeps on asking. You know, one of the things in the Bible that I think we don't fully understand is the silence of God. If you look at Jesus' ministry, you will see there are moments when he is silent and how it impacts the people. They say Jesus is sometimes delayed. Like when Jairus sent Jesus to come see his daughter, and he tarried a little while, and he is walking down the road, and a woman touches his hem of his garment and is healed. But they said, my daughter is Jairus sends a servant to tell Jesus, daughter's dead. But what Jesus wanted to do was he wanted to start 12 years of pain and restore a 12-year-old at the same time in that story. So sometimes we're rushing Jesus to just give us 12 when he wants to give us 24. Another example of this, Jermaine, is the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus. If you had come, my brother wouldn't be dead. I know he'll be alive one day. You know, they do what most spiritual people do. They spiritualize the death, but then they trust God. And what Jesus proved, that it doesn't matter what the ritual or things say, he can still go into dead places after they've been buried and bring them back alive. But right here and right now, we have a pregnant pause. She goes and she asks them. And he just stands and looks at her. But this is an interesting thing. It's an interesting thing. Some people think they're close to God and have power. Or some people co-opt the power of God and act like they're in charge. Let me break it down. The disciples tells Jesus, tell her, stop screaming after us. Like they can heal her. Like they can deal with her daughter. Let me give you a modern day example. We know God, we want to go back to church. All of us. But your community hasn't been ravaged by COVID. It's a right. Am I dying a right? We've got to learn not to let people co-opt God for their own desires. We've got to learn to stop letting men over-spiritualize the moment. But, you know, this is the thing that blessed me the most. She didn't respond to them. She doesn't deal with them. She deals with God. Let me give you some modern application. Your social media channels, your communications, they are your choice. Write what you want, say what you want, and when people want to argue with you, block them. God didn't mandate you to go argue with every fool that has an opinion. There was a book that came out a few years ago called The Death of Expertise. People listen to conspiracies, they read things, they think things, they act like they understand things. They listen to certain news stations or all news stations, and then they come back as if they're experts. Let me tell you, I can't say that. I'll say it anyway. Facebook has a higher percentage of fools than the general population. Can't finish high school, barely finished college, didn't get another degree, but want to give us a full medical description of the challenges and issues we're now facing. Don't have a PhD in economics, have listened to party rhetoric about trickle-down economics and everything else. They're broke now, we are broke now, but they want to give us a full economic dissertation. It hasn't worked for 30 years, but they still going to tell me how it's supposed to work. You don't, this widow, this woman, this Canaanite woman proved the ultimate thing to us, Lori. You don't have to respond. My requirement is not to respond to the idiots that think they're close to God. My requirement is to entreat and reach to God before I respond to any of these fools. She didn't even stop there. But this is the interesting thing. Jesus gives her a theological dissertation on the necessity of his mission. It clearly says, I'm here for the children of Israel. And the dog they describe in the text is a lapdog, so that means that the Canaanites and Gentiles are still in the house, but the food he's putting on the table is for the children. But this is the interesting part. She responds and says, let me just get close enough and bless me with the crumbs of your anointing. You can't stop fighting. This is what I know about God. He cannot ignore someone in need. He cannot ignore someone in problems, because what he is a God of love and compassion. And sometimes people will give you the theological statement of what God is doing, but sometimes God will shift the very order of the universe just to make sure that you are taken care of. The Bible is written from the very beginning that the children of Israel were supposed to be delivered by the Messiah, which was Jesus Christ. But in this moment, this woman's plea changed the very destiny of existence by saying, I need God to move in my house right now. Your prayer is so powerful that it can change what was written, what was designed, what was prophesied. I need somebody right now to understand that you can change the very destiny of existence by leaning into Jesus. And the final thing is a firm faith. Jermaine, as I was coming up in the church, there were people like Miss Maddie Little at the Unity Baptist Tabernacle Church, and Mrs. Faye Fagan at the Greater Centennial Church, A.M.E. Zion Church, or Miss Irene Boykin. And what these women had is they didn't have an emotive faith, they had a firm faith. You know, some of these mothers of the church that birthed generations of children and took care of them through Sunday school and Christian education, they were not an emotional group, but they had faith. This faith to walk with you through all the journeys and challenges and issues. They didn't go up or down when this one got suspended and this one got pregnant and this one got in trouble. They just came beside him and said, baby, let's keep walking together. Some of us are looking for an emotional response to God, and God is not asking you to have an emotive faith. He's asking you to have a firm midnight hour faith, a faith that is unshakable, a faith that won't change, a faith that won't be moved by the news, won't be moved by your friends, won't be moved by your cousin, a faith that is unmovable, that is firm and deep into the promises of God, a faith that is tested through a lifetime of challenges and issues with a God that answers them all the time. Right now, I just need a generation not to shout, not to scream, not to run, not to balk, not to get engaged and involved. I just need you to have a firm faith, because this too shall pass. Weeping may endure for the night, but joy will come in the morning. And I just need you not to shout or scream. I just need you to stand like an army right in the front row, knowing what God can do, knowing that he will make it, knowing that the God that answered our prayers before, the God of our fathers and our mothers, the God that pushed us through this all, the God that has birthed a generation, the God that has blessed us beyond belief, the God that made our mothers cry at night but made them make it in the day, that God we just need to believe. All I know right now is that in this day and in this season, the example of my faith are not televangelists. They're not everybody on Facebook that's an expert. You know this, Jermaine. Everybody's an expert on how to deal with this, right? My faith, the models of my faith are the mothers of the church. Like a mother, Elise Martin. Like a mother, Iris Martin. Like a sister, Yvonne Thorne. A sister, Josie McIntosh. Sister Brenda Johnson. Those mothers that, as this thing was unpacking, they didn't get scared, they didn't get pulsed. They'd be like, baby, let's just keep going. God is going to get us through. I don't know how it's going to take and what it's going to do, but God is going to get us through. Because they had a firm faith. Firm faith. Firm faith. Right now, usually shout and jump and get happy, but that's not appropriate. On this Mother's Day, for my generation and those of us younger, you not only honor these mothers because they birthed us and took care of us, but we honor these mothers because they're the spiritual giants that will guide us to the next place. Don't get caught up in the latest book, in the latest trend, in the latest hot preacher. Because let me tell you something. There are a lot of hot preachers throughout the history of the church. But who's still here? The mothers. Hold to God's unchanging hand. Father God, there was somebody that is going through trouble. I ask that right now that you give them firm faith, an audacious ask, and a persistent push in their spirit, God, that they do not grow weary in well-doing, but they understand that you will guide us through this time. God, I pray for every mother in our nation that has blessed us in a special way. And I pray for this next generation that is going to fight some battles. And I ask that you will speak to them, that they see the model and the mold you've created and follow in those steps. In your holy name, amen.